One of Campagnolo's most famous and sought-after products is their Complete Tool Case, which contains almost every tool needed to prepare a frame set for it to be built into a bicycle and to build the bike too. They were remarkable tools and prized toolkits in their day, and even now, when so many bikes are made of carbon, certain tools from Campy's kit are invaluable and still used if you have one. Since these wonderful toolkits turn up every now and then, and you might find one and want to learn all about it, here's a look at mine. Keep watching, because at the end I've included illustrations from Campy's Tool Case instructional poster and the tool pages from their Catalog 16 with part numbers and descriptions. I believe my Campy toolkit is from the late 1960s, since it's similar to the one shown in Campy's Catalog 16, which came out about then. By 1973, the kit had changed to a plastic interior instead of the full wooden interior with blocks supporting all the tools that mine has. Pristine, essentially unused Campy toolkits exist, some in collections, but they don't make my heart race the way my example does. That's because it came out of the Bicycle Center in Santa Cruz, California, where I worked. Roger and Marcy Sands opened the Bicycle Center in the late 60s, and a who's who of bicycle celebrities got their start there. So every time I use any of the tools in this Campy kit, I think of all these mechanics that used it before me and feel very lucky to own it. Watch to see how all the tools go into the case. There are a few loose tools inside because you bought the kit with the threading you used most, so you would only get the British threaded tools. Then later you would add the Italian or French threaded tools if you needed them. So my kit has some extras that don't have holders and that rest in the bottom of the kit. If you look closely, you'll see that the craftsmanship of the wood tool holders isn't very special. Some are crooked, they crack and break relatively easily, and they're only glued in place and can pop off. You can see some repairs to mine made over the years by some of the Bicycle Center mechanics long ago. Still, I feel a strong connection with this old toolkit, and I love owning and using it. Here's the poster that came with the toolkit that you could hang on the wall above it so that you could use it as a reference if you didn't know how to use the tools or you forgot. As far as I know, this is the only instructions that Campy provided with the toolkit. There's nothing in the catalogs, so if you didn't know how to use the tools, it's pretty important that you got this poster and you studied it to learn how. So I've turned the clock back to, I don't know, 1968 or so here, and I put a nice bike of the right vintage here. This is about a 1967 or 68 Cinelli Model B. I've got it on a proper Campagnolo repair stand, which is another very hard to find vintage tool. And what I did is I took the crank out. So we're going to pretend that we're going to put the crank in, and I'm going to show you how you use the tools to prepare the bottom bracket, since this is a kit for working on bikes, adjusting bikes, tuning bikes, assembling bikes, but it's also, and especially what it's prized for, is the ability to prepare a steel frame, the head tube of the bike, so that the headset can go in the steering component, and also the bottom bracket, which is, of course, the main thing for pedaling the bike. So that's there, and what we're going to do is we'll chase the threads, and then we'll face the surface here, which makes sure that the cup, when you screw the cups in, the cups sit flat against this surface, so you know that everything's running properly and the bearings will last a long time. To take this apart, I use the crank puller to remove the crank, the pedal wrench to remove the pedals, and the cup tools to get the cups out of the frames. But I'll show you how we put them in and how you use the cutting tools and facing tools. That'll give you an idea of how the tools for the headset work, which work very similar, although you press the cups in there instead of screwing them in. In the bottom bracket, of course, you screw the cups in. It's threaded on both sides. The tools we're going to use take up a good part of the kit. Here's the taps to chase the threads here, and those are the handles for them. And then over here are two tools for driving in these holders. Basically, it's a guide or a pilot. So that's going to go into the piece that we thread into the bottom bracket, and then the cutter here cuts and faces and makes sure that surface is parallel. It's a pretty beautiful, sophisticated tool. And then this is a tool for putting in the fixed cup and removing the fixed cup. So those are some tools and how they work together, and you can see how they're organized in the box like that, like that. You can see that they're running on this super smooth machine fit shaft through the middle to make sure that the threads are perfectly parallel. This frame has been tapped probably a couple times in its history, depending on if there's been any issues, but ordinarily you would put some cutting fluid on here and then you drive these two in. This is a Italian bottom bracket, so an Italian bottom bracket, both sides turn to the right. So to tap and chase it, it's just like any other tap. You just gently drive it in very smoothly, and there would be fluid on this, cutting fluid, and you do that on both sides. And you see that the whole thing is running on this machined rod through the middle, which keeps everything perfectly square. Now to face it, we use this beautiful tool, which has a bunch of parts that you want to try to get right when you put it on. This is a threaded end, little keyed spacer, knurled ring, which is just another spacer, the spring, and then this is the piece that goes into the frame. That's a little brass plate that protects the cutter, the teeth. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it in the frame. And we do that with these cool tools here. They fit into the notch. You could even put only one side of these on, as long as it's this side, because this has the right diameter. So we put this in. Thread that in like that. You thread the other side in, which can be tricky sometimes. See how it's tightening up? But you can feel it. You might be able to hear it. Really incredibly smooth. There's nothing in there except nice clean threads. So you screw that in until they're both recessed inside, because we don't want the cutter to bump into the tool. Here again, you'd use cutting fluid. I do not want to remove any material from this, so I'm not going to fully assemble the tool. But you would put it on here. Well, what I'll do is I'll assemble it from the other direction, just so you can see the order of parts, in case you're curious. So the cutter's now on this side. As you tighten this, it compresses the spring, which pulls the cutter against the surface of the frame and maintains even pressure when you cut and face the surface. If you asked me what my favorite tool is, I'd probably have to say the Campagnolo fixed cup tool, because it solved a problem. Once you have one and you're building bikes with Campy components back in the day, this is what you reach for every single time. You'll see it has flats on it here. That's so you could actually put it in the vise if you have to pick up a frame to remove a fixed cup. The fixed cup was screwed in and sometimes could be extremely tight, and you wanted to be tight so it wouldn't loosen up, but sometimes it made it tricky to get them out. But with this tool, you could put them in and get them out, and they'd be perfect, nice and tight. They'd go in straight every time, and they'd never slip. This tool would never slip because it attaches to the cup. This is the other tool used for fixed cups, and you can see it's so thin that it wouldn't stay on the cup. It'd just slip right off the cup. Fits on the cup, but it's just for loosely screwing it in. It's not for removing it or tightening it. You want to use a proper tool, and that's what that fixed cup tool is all about. So I've got the cup, I've got grease in it, and I've got the sleeve, the protective sleeve that came with Campy bottom brackets. It's a two-part sleeve. This is the larger part. And so the way you use this tool, take off the cup holder. Then you can take the cup, put it right through. And then you screw this piece down. And it's all set to go in the frame. You line it up, tuck in the little plastic sleeve. Sometimes a royal pain to get them in. Wiggle it through, and then get it started carefully. And when you're working on Campy bottom brackets, you always put a little blue Loctite on there. Absolutely do not use grease or anti-seize because it'll loosen up when you're riding the bike. You want it to stay tight. Anytime you need to break something like a blue Loctite free, you can just heat up the bottom bracket shell a little bit and the Loctite will release. But if you use a little blue Loctite, which is a temporary Loctite, that cup will not come loose when you're riding. It's a big problem if a fixed cup on this style of a bottom bracket comes loose when you're riding. And the beautiful thing about this tool is there's no way you can mangle the cup. There's no way this tool will slip. So you can tighten it really good with these two handles, but they might not be long enough to get a tight one out. So the tool includes a cheater bar. Isn't that cool? You can sort of see how it's all flared from 50, 60 years of mechanics reefing on this thing. But that just slips right over the end like that. I'll loosen it a little bit so you can see how long it is. See, it's massive leverage with this thing. And you can get that cup really tight with a tool like that. And then you just unscrew the holder, slide the tool out, and the fixed cup is installed perfectly. You're ready to assemble the rest of the bottom bracket. So let's look at some of the tools of this amazing toolkit that I feel very fortunate to own and get to use still on the vintage bikes that I work on. Let me know if you have any questions about these tools. I'd be happy to answer. And you may be wondering how to use them. Maybe you come across a kit like this. You're wondering what tools are in it. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the tools and about using the tools. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.